Hey man, this is Chris the Phone Cats, and I'm going to talk about Rakdos Grinning Malice deck forever. Okay, out of all the new decks, this one seems to be the fastest and the most... I don't even know if polarizing is the right word, but if you're going to win, you're going to win, and it's going to be awesome. If you lose, it's going to be the most ragey loss because you're just constantly sacrificing yourself. Alright, let's get this going. I'm playing with all 4 Evolving Winds. Damn it, Evolving Wilds. I say Evolving Winds in my head every time that I cast it, so just know that. Yeah, all these new new multicolored decks, I always get mana screwed, so I play with 4 of those right now. I'm not playing with the Death Greeter. Whenever another creature dies, you gain 1 life. It's kind of like the other one in Golgari's, but doesn't deal damage. It's funky to me. Okay, these Bloodchief Ascensions are kind of funky. 1 mana for an enchantment, so first turn, blah! At the beginning of each end step, every turn, if opponent has lost 2 or more life this turn, you can put a quest counter on it. As soon as it gets... Well, hold on. Yeah, it has to have 3 quest counters on it, and then every time a card hits your opponent's graveyard, they lose 2 life and you gain 2 life. It's pretty common to get 2 of these out, and then by the time they get 3 quest counters on them, every time something hits your opponent's graveyard, there's an 8 balance life switch. It's so powerful. They lose 4, you gain 4, and this deck is all about self-abuse. It's very masochistic. Alright, let's keep this going. Reanimate. Put target creature card from the graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. You lose life equal to the creature's mana cost. It's pairing grossly well with these Vexing Devils. You might get the God draw. It feels so much like Jace, kind of, to where, like, if you get your Phantasms and a couple just really quick discard cards that you're just going to be, like, cackling as you're in such a powerful position so soon. Vexing Devil, 1 mana for a 4/3. When it enters the battlefield, your opponent can pay 4 life, or it deals 4 damage to them. And if they do that, you sacrifice Vexing Devil. Otherwise, they're going to be able to kill it somehow. Or why would they opt to take 4 damage each turn? You know what I mean? Almost every time, your opponent will take the 4 damage. And if you have a Reanimate in your hand, you know that next turn you're going to be casting it and only taking 1 damage. So, just such a powerful combo out the gate. Right now, I'm not playing with the Dragon Master Outcast. I'm not feeling these 1/1s that have late game abilities. I've lost to it recently, and it's making me reconsider it. I guess I can actually tell you what it does. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 6 or more lands, you put a 5/5 dragon token on the play. Every turn that it's your upkeep, that you have 6 or more lands. So if you're going into that super late game where you're just top decking versus your opponent, and you top deck this, you bust out that 5/5 dragon each turn, or if you have it in your starting hand, it's a nice 1 mana for 1/1. But yeah, I opted out right now. I've seen a lot of people playing with these Stabbing Pains. I'm not right now. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn, and you tap that creature. This deck plays so fast that sometimes you can win in that situation where, bam, like you just need to take out that 1 blocker, and then you're able to win the game. You got a Demonic Tutor. 2 mana, grab any card in your deck. Normally I'm pretty rushy with it, and we'll either grab like a Vexing Devil or a Reanimate. I haven't drawn it too much late game to where I'm going for one of my 5/4 haste flyers, but we'll get to those. Not playing with Typhoid Rats. 1 mana for a 1/1 Death Touch. Can be kind of hot, but I don't know. I feel like there's better stuff in this deck than playing with some of these 1 mana for 1/1s. I ditched the Goblin Death Raiders too. It's 2 mana for a 3/1 Trample. It's kind of funky because it's 3/1 and Trample, so if you attack with it and your opponent blocks with something, cool, a couple of damage tramples over and this thing dies. It can pair with some of these other cards that I'm not playing with, but I guess I'm playing this deck in a certain style that it just doesn't work out. Okay, I flirted with these Soot Stoke Kindlers, taking them in and out, and right now I'm playing with them. So you play it, haste, you can pop your opponent for 1, and then next turn you're able to play some of your 3 casting cost beasts and then pop them for some quick damage. I like it. I just play this deck in a really fast kind of pace to where you can tell if you're going to win or lose by turn 5, but I guess you can say that about every deck. Onyx Mage, 2 mana for a 2/1, and then you can pay 2, which is reasonable, and target creature you control gets Death Touch. Kind of nice for chump blocking, or if you're attacking and you don't want your opponent to be able to block something without losing a creature, but I'm not playing with them right now. It seems like there's almost like a weenie version of this deck that you can go with. Terminate, gotta play with them all, so sweet. 2 mana, destroy target creature. It can't be regenerated, and it's an instant. You can use it on fatties, or just getting stuff out of the way if you're playing like the Weenie Rush version. I was playing with the Spitflame Witch for a while. It's 2 mana for a 2/1, and late game you can just start subtracting from both of your lives in kind of like a Pestilence fashion. It's 1 red, 1 black, each player loses 1 life. I took them out, but it's only one of them, so, you know. Okay, here's the 3 casting cost creatures that I like to give haste with that previous card. Ashenmoor Gouger, 3 mana for a 4/4. It can't block, so you might just well attack with it every turn unless it's going to die. And then Avatar of Discord, 3 mana for a 5/3, flying. When it comes into play, sacrifice it unless you discard 2 cards. Okay, here's a lesson that I learned. I just spit on my iPad. Here's a lesson that I learned the hard way, and I've had blue players mind control it or Rite of Replication it and learn the hard way. If you have no cards in your hand, this thing gets sacrificed. It's not like where if you had 1 card in your hand, you would just discard that 1 card. Maybe that's obvious to everyone else, but if you do not discard 2 cards, this thing dies. But yeah, I had to try it myself and figure out if that would work out or not. Here's the other 3 casting cost creature. I'm not playing with Blood Cultist. It's 3 mana for a 1/1, and it has that Tim Monty Python reference ability to where you can ping 1 damage to target creature. Every time that a creature dies, whenever a creature dealt damage by Blood Cultist this turn dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Blood Cultist. So you can get kind of funky, and every time one of your opponent's creatures is about to die, you can ping it for 1 in response, even if it's not going to push it over the top to give this dude +1/+1. But, I don't know, 3 mana for a 1/1, and it just doesn't fit the vibe that I'm playing with this deck. I wish that every time that a creature died, it would have this Blood Cultist lady deal 1 more damage, but that's not on the cards. Alright, Blightning. This card's so ragey. Cool picture too, nice art. 3 mana, deals 3 damage to target player, and that player discards 2 cards. It's so sweet. It's very advantageous. I'm playing with both. Okay, here's some funkiness, but I love it. This deck is so, like, random. Chaos Warp, 3 mana for an instant. You pretty much... Okay, target opponent shuffles it. The owner of target permanent shuffles that card into their library. So you remove target permanent from the battlefield and just throw it back in your opponent's deck. And then your opponent reveals the top card of their card, and if it's a permanent, he or she puts it on the battlefield. So I've done this to my own creatures before, in just hoping of top decking something better, like I've Chaos Warped one of my own lands. And sometimes you'll just get lucky and then top deck that perfect card that you need. This deck has a lot of permanents in it, and be able to change the game right there. Or if your opponent got some crazy, God, I'm always playing that dumb flyer deck, but I can't think of the card right now. You know, that one artifact that wins the game. Whatever, if your opponent has something super overpowered, you can shuffle it back into their deck, and then they show like a land and put it into play. For 3 mana at instant speed, it's nice, and you can go crazy and use it on your own stuff. Heat Shimmer, it's not in here right now, but I can see the advantages. It's a sorcery though. 3 mana, put a token of copy target creature on the battlefield. Token is haste, and then at the end step, exile it. So yeah, clone something, it dies at the end of the turn. And a lot of people are playing with these Hissing Iguanas. I don't know, maybe I'm selling it short, but 3 mana for a 3/1, not terrible. And whenever another creature dies, you can have Hissing Iguana pop your opponent for 1 damage. So it doesn't apply to the Hissing Iguana itself, but if you're playing that mass creature version to where all your stuff's going to be dying and your opponent's stuff is going to be dying, could be cool. There's only 2 though. I'm playing with this legendary Blood Witch, mostly because she's legendary, and yeah, I don't know if I like it or not. 3 mana for a 3/1, pay 2 and sacrifice a creature, and then Lizolda deals 2 damage to target creature or player if the sacrificed creature was red, draw a card if the sacrificed creature was black. So sometimes you'll be playing a gold card or a card, yeah, look how many of these cards are both red and black, there's a lot. All of them almost. So in that situation, you'll be drawing a card and pinging for 2 damage. And then you can do this at instant speed. So if you can get away with blocking, or if your creature was about to die and sacrifice it, or including Lizolda herself, it can just turn into some nice card advantage. God, I love these Ashenmoor Lieges. So overpowered. First time actually looking at the art. He's on a little wolf dog. Okay, 4 mana for a 4/1. That's fine by me. Other black creatures get +1/+1, other reds get +1/+1, and we just mentioned how everything in this deck almost is black and red. So all your stuff pretty much gets +2/+2. And then if your opponent actually targets it, they lose 4 life. God, your opponent is constantly debating whether they want to lose a whole bunch of life or not. I like it. Wrecking Ball is some nice diversity. 4 mana, you can destroy target creature or land. When you're playing against all these gold decks, so many people are going to be land screwed, and if you know the decks well enough, you know what color they need mostly, so you can just pop one of their lands, and sometimes people will rage quit just because lands are so funky in this. I'm not playing with this Pain Magnification, but I can see it in like that weird Rush Weenie build that some people might be going for. 3 mana, whenever an opponent is dealt 3 or more damage by a single source, that player discards a card. So, could be some nice card advantage if you're rolling with all these small creatures. I don't even know, man. If you attack with a Hissing Iguana and then that Goblin Death Roller, will they have to discard 2 cards? Looks like so, but doesn't work out with the vibes that I'm playing. Okay, I'm playing with these just as some more creature stuff. Bituminous Blast, 5 mana, deal 4 damage to target creature, and then Cascade. Let's see if I can actually describe Cascade right. Probably not. You reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal something that's less than the casting cost of this, and you can cast it for free. I don't know, someone in the comments correct me. It's a crazy ability. A lot of people think it's overpowered. Not playing with these elementals. 3 mana for a 1/1, and whenever another creature dies, you put +1/+1 on this. Not my thing. I'm not playing with the Blazing Spectre either, but I like the throwback to Hypnotic Spectre. Hypnotic Sphincter, everyone said that, right? 4 mana for a 2/2, Flying Haste, and whenever it hits your opponent, that player chooses and discards a card. So, meh. Okay, there's a couple cards like this. There's a Hellhole Rat, and then there's some Ogre thing that we'll get to in a hot second. 4 mana for a 2/2 haste, and when it enters the battlefield, target player discards a card, and then the rats deal damage equal to that card's converted mana cost. So you play this on turn 4, and your opponent's probably going to dump a land. I don't know. It's kind of cool if like you got a Wrecking Ball in your hand too, and then all of a sudden it turns into this land control vibe, but I skipped them. While we're on the subject of discards, we'll skip that and go to the Ogre. The Ogre's 4 mana for a 3/2. It doesn't have haste, but your opponent reveals a card at random from their hand. They don't have to discard it, but they lose life equal to that card's converted mana cost. So when you're casting this on turn 4, your opponent's probably going to have some stuff that's around, 4 or 5. So getting popped for 5 damage out of the gate, and it's not even damage, they lose life, so sometimes that mechanic can come into play. I skipped over in this video and skipped over in my deck these Scavenger Drakes. 4 mana for a 1/1, so weak. Flying, and whenever another creature dies, you can put a +1/+1 counter on it. Not my thing, but might fit your weird deck that's not the best. Just kidding, your deck is the best, it's good. Okay, I don't know why anyone would take these out. These are so ridiculous. Demigod of Revenge, 5 mana for 5/4, Flying Haste. I would probably play with it if it just stopped right there, but every time, let's say you got one of these in your graveyard and you cast another, you bring the other ones back from the dead. If you're playing against one of the mill decks, like the blue mill deck or just any deck that makes you mill stuff. I don't even know where I was going with that. Yeah, you can just all of a sudden be casting all 4 of these and popping them for 20. Okay, what was I going to mention? That Demigod of Revenge does not work out with reanimates, because the ability only triggers whenever it's cast from your hand. But sometimes, I don't know, let's say you got 2 of them in your starting hand, and on turn 3 you played an Avatar of Discord and discarded one of them. And then on turn 5, you play the other one and then pop for 15 flying damage. And another thing about this Avatar of Discord, let's say you play this and then discard one of your huge bombs, which we'll get to towards the end of this vid. And then the next turn you can reanimate your huge bomb and take a hefty amount of damage, but now all of a sudden you got some ridiculous creature into play. And let's say you had a Suit Stoke Kindler and then your huge bomb had haste. Oh my god, overpowered. Alright, let's stay focused. Stick with it. Where was I? Okay, yeah, here's my bombs. Grave Titan, pretty solid. I mean, I'm playing with both. 6 mana for a 6/6, Death Touch. When it comes into play, put 2/2/2 zombies into play. Whenever it attacks, put 2/2/2 zombies into play. So yeah, let's say you play a Grave Titan and you have that thing that gives anything haste. Cast it, you got some zombies, attack with it since you just gave it haste. You got 4 2/2s and you're attacking with a Death Touch. It's very surprising. Massacre Worm, super sweet, super sweet. 6 mana, 6/5. Thought I'd trample, it doesn't. Whenever it comes into play, each creature your opponent controls gets -2/-2, and then every time your opponent creature dies, they lose 2 life. It's one of those game over cards that people rage on. I skipped on these Capricious Ifrits, 6 mana for a 6/4, and it kind of has this weird random ability. You choose non-land permanents, 1 of yours and 2 of your opponents, and then destroy 1 of them at random. So this deck has some like random abilities that are kind of funky to me. There's 2 of them. I'm not playing with them. Not playing with these weird-ass Deathbringer Thoctars either. 6 mana for a 3/3. Whenever another creature dies, you or your opponents, you put a +1/+1 counter on this dude, and then you can remove a +1/+1 counter to deal 1 damage to target creature or player. So I can see the vibe that gets going to where once you get like 2 or 3 counters on this thing, you're just able to remove +1/+1 counters to kill creatures and then to put more +1/+1 counters on it. It only keeps going infinitely if you're killing 1/1s, and then, you know, by the time you get enough, you can just light up your opponent by removing them all. And you can do that at instant speed, so it's kind of good, but not good enough. I'm not playing with Defiler of Souls. Okay, like I was talking about, almost everything in this deck, or the majority maybe not, of the cards in this deck are mixed colors. And at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a monocolored creature. Good if you're playing against one of the original 10 decks, but can, I don't know, bite yourself in the ass if you're not. 6 mana for a 5/5 flying, isn't too bad on its own. I passed on this Malfegor, legendary dragon. 6 mana for a 6/6, and then whenever it enters the battlefield, discard your hand. It can be one of those win instantly cards, but I don't know, I don't care for it. Let's say you got 3 cards in your hand, which seems to be reasonable, and you play this dragon. You discard those 3 cards, each opponent sacrifices a creature, and each opponent sacrifices a creature for each one of the cards discarded. So you discard 3 cards. Each opponent sacrifices 3 creatures, so your opponent has to sacrifice 3 creatures. I don't know, that's kind of hot. It depends on the deck you're playing, so super situational. I really haven't given it that much thought, but I will right now. It turns each one of the cards in your hand into a removal spell, which is kind of nice. So let's say you got crazy land or just cards that you can't use for somehow. I don't even know how that would happen in this deck. But each one of them turns into a creature removal that's free. Could be nice. Could be nice. Okay, Rakdos the Defiler. This is the name of the deck, but I'm not playing with it. 6 mana for a 7/6 flying trample. When it attacks, sacrifice half of the non-demon permanents you control rounded up. So rounded up, that's for the worse. And then if it actually hits your opponent, like they don't kill him, he has trample and flying 7 damage. So he's normally going to hit it, and if they're trying to block, but if they remove it, they remove it. And since they'll remove it after you attack and have to sacrifice over half your stuff, kind of rough. But if it actually hits your opponent, they have to sacrifice half of their non-demon permanents, which should be all of them, rounded down. I'm not doing these. Karavac the Merciless, he's a legendary, but you get 2 of them. 7 mana for a 5/4, and whenever opponent casts a spell, this dude deals damage to target creature or player equal to that spell's converted mana cost. Kind of rowdy. I just didn't like drawing him in my starting hand, but I guess you can say that about anything. I don't think it's good enough. I don't know. Even if they do remove him, he's still going to pop him for damage because they had to cast a spell to remove him, most likely. Avatar of Slaughter, 8 mana for an 8/8. All creatures have double strike and attack each turn if able. Can be one of those cast on turn 8 and win cards. Den of the Fireheart, 8 mana. Put a 5/5 black and red elemental on the battlefield, and target opponent sacrifices a creature for each black creature you control, and then sacrifices a land for each red creature you control. And of course the elemental is black and red. And of course all your dudes are black and red. I don't know, 8 mana can be one of those like end the game spells. And last, but possibly least, 8 mana for a 5/5 flying. Whenever a creature deals damage to Vampiric Dragon and die, whenever a creature dealt damage by this dragon and dies, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. And then you can pay 2 to ping 1 damage to target creature. Not my thing, but this deck plays so fast. Whenever I just want to knock out a quick game, this is the one that I go with just because it's fun and it's such a gamble. Thanks for watching Magic the Gathering for life, folks!